sweet, fresh meat.
You came to me to find out how guys like Mike and Chucky and Freddy do what they do, not why. I can't just sit here on the first night I ever met you and explain it to you. It's got to come from your own understanding of the process.
Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon really took the horror world by storm when the trailer first released. Similar to Scream in 1996, Behind the Mask was a meta look at slashers that really made you think. Not just of the titular movie, but of all the movies it's paying homage to.
All the obvious weapons, I've sabotaged.
This Bun trailer had it as the talk of every movie message board, and star Nathan Basil felt positioned to break out huge.
There's that whole thing, making it look like you're walking, and everybody else is running their asses off.
But then it released, and while it was widely liked, the film had trouble tapping into a larger market, which meant that the sequel we thought was all but certain just never came to pass. So today on What the F Happened to This Unmade Horror Movie, we look at why we never received Before the Mask, The Return of Leslie Vernon. For those of you that have never seen The Rise of Leslie Vernon, let me summarize. Behind the Mask is a mockumentary that follows Taylor Gentry and her film crew as they document the preparations of an up-and-coming killer, Leslie Vernon. See, famous killers like Freddy, Michael, and Jason all actually exist in this world. During the midst of this, they track the would-be final girl and her friends to an old farmhouse. This is when shit truly hits the fan and Taylor and her crew find themselves part of Leslie's violent game.
This is my fault? Because I'm sexually active?
There's a lot of little twists and turns, but that's the gist of the story, and it's a damn good one. He's even got his own little Dr. Loomis-like character in Doc Halloran, played by Robert Englund. During the credits, Leslie seems to have been defeated, but security camera footage from the morgue shows that's just not true. This little tease of Leslie still being alive was enough to have those that love the film clamor for a sequel. I want to thank you guys for watching What the F Happened to This Unmade Horror Movie, and ask that if you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now, like this video, and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video goes up. And now, back to the show. Don't get me wrong though, there's definitely a sect of people that feel that Behind the Mask really jumped the shark in the third act when it became a full-blown slasher. They feel it became the exact movie that it was parodying.
You have to tell me, what happens to me?
I'm not one of those people and would have been disappointed if we hadn't seen Leslie get to do his thing and go full slashy. But for those that feel slighted, a sequel would be a good way to course correct. Screenwriter David Stev has always had an idea for a Leslie Vernon sequel. In fact, he's had a story for the whole trilogy ever since the first initial inception. Because that's what you do with horror, right? Always plan for a franchise? But the form that it took shifted throughout the years as they tried repeatedly to get it made. Glosserman pitched an idea to MTV Films for a TV series that would have followed Angela Gothel's Taylor as she runs a school of survivor girls. She sets up a To Catch a Predator style situation where a killer walks into either a fraternity or sorority house, then they're cornered by a film crew, shaming them for coming to kill a bunch of innocent people. You can see the dry humor from the original at play here.
Would you say that most of these are
Work-related? Well, I wouldn't suggest reading Grey's Anatomy for kicks.
And you can see how much fun that this could potentially be. An issue Glosserman kept running into was that no one was interested in making their sequel. What they were interested in, though, was remaking the film, but doing so with big-name actors. But that went against what Glosserman was hoping for, as he truly wanted to bring back Nathan Basil and Angela Goethals for the film.
Fuck!
His intrigue was seeing these characters interact again after the events of the first one. Some of the most progress came when Adam Goldberg of The Goldbergs came aboard to executive produce the project. With him having such a massive hit at ABC, it seemed certain we'd finally get the sequel, but still no studio was interested. This was when the idea of a Kickstarter came up. The initial Kickstarter goal was $450,000. Sure, that's a pretty minuscule amount, but Glosserman had an investor that would match the amount. $1 million for a film in the late '80s was a pretty big ask, but the team still felt they could do it.
Hello!
They even used Nathan Basil to promote the venture as Leslie Vernon. And there's even some story progression in this little video, as we can see that Leslie is now married to Jamie, which just brings up a whole slew of questions. Unfortunately, on Kickstarter, you need the fully pledged amount or all the money is returned to the backers. Since they had only managed $180,000, a still mightily impressive feat, especially at the time, the project failed and they had to start back at square one. The story of Before the Mask actually serves as both a prequel and a sequel. It kind of treads similar ground to Scream 3 in that there's a film within a film element going on. I mean, let's hope that it's a little better, but who knows. See, the events of the first film are being made into a movie called The Harvest Murders. The film within a film would allow us to see some origin material with Leslie, without actually going the prequel route. This is smart because if something doesn't work, it can just be blamed on the Harvest Murders not getting it right. Because I don't know about you, but I have no interest in seeing how Leslie came to be. What I do have an interest in is seeing how Leslie could possibly interact with both Taylor and Doc Halloran after the events of the first one.
We're not gonna see each other after tonight anyway. We might as well just say our goodbyes now.
After a bunch of people are getting murdered on the set of Harvest Murders, the cops shut down the production, with the caveat that it cannot resume until Leslie is either captured or killed, because obviously Leslie must be the one doing it. I think you know where this is going. The director contacts Taylor in order to set up a trap to lure Leslie out of hiding so he can get back to filming his movie. But when Leslie is found, it turns out he's innocent from the production killings. So Taylor and Doc Halloran must team up with Leslie in order to find out what's actually happening. It allows there to be a bit of a twist and still provides some meta moments for the viewer. Then the actual sequel does do some weird stuff, like develop a romance between Taylor and Leslie. The overall tone of Before the Mask is still really fun. There are some pretty funny jokes made about how much Hollywood pushes everything to 11.
These go to 11.
The slight tussle with Doc Halloran is now expanded into a full-blown karate sequence. Then the film version of Leslie is this hulking mute more akin to Jason Voorhees. But with every year that passed, so did the opportunity to make the film. It's 2022 and we don't seem any closer to getting a sequel. Glosserman has said that the time to make Before the Mask has unfortunately passed, since that story took place just 1 year after the original film. And not to mention people like Scott Wilson having passed. Fortunately, they were able to release a comic book series based on their script in 2017. Nathan Thomas Milliner brought to life the story that Glosserman and Stev had created. The comic served as a way to finally tell the story they'd concocted a decade prior, but also to prove to studios that there was still fan interest in the character. Just because the story of Before the Mask had been told doesn't mean that they were done telling stories of Leslie Vernon. Nathan Basil has mostly moved on from acting and works as a production coordinator for the popular Deadliest Catch TV show. But every time he's been asked about the role, he's adamant that he'd love to return. The window of opportunity seems to be shrinking more and more as the years pass, but fan interest seems to be there, with Scream 2022 reigniting the meta dissection of slasher films. Maybe another opportunity for Leslie Vernon to return is on the horizon. I know I'll be keeping my scythes crossed. Let us know if you'd like to see a sequel to Behind the Mask, and we'll see you in the next episode.
It is going to get wet in here tonight. Lace your boots up, kitty.